Welcome to the Academy of General Dentistry Podcast Series featuring Dr. George Schmidt. Each episode features experts in the field of dentistry who share insights and inspiration to help you succeed. Let's get started.
Hey, welcome back, everyone. We've got another fantastic show for you today as we welcome Dr. Fesaha Gebrehiwot, and he's going to tell us about a really inspirational and unique story. But before we begin, make sure you subscribe to our channel, hit the like button, ring that bell. That way you'll be among the first to be notified of all things AGD. So Dr. Gebrehiwot, welcome to the program.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so much looking forward to you. And of course, you are featured in this week's AGD Impact, which I happen to have a copy right here, hot off the press. And there's a nice big article on you inside of here. So congratulations on that.
Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate for AGD Impact for giving me this platform to share my story. Frankly, it was my intention to share the story because, as we go through life, the ups and downs, and that's really kind of what makes us who we are. And so it's a little different perspective. So I kind of wanted to share, how we ended up in dentistry. We all walk into dentistry from different paths. So my path, I believe, is a little unique. And so I wanted to share that.
Absolutely. So again, of course, you're in AGD Impact, and AGD Impact is one of our award-winning publications. So make sure you look out for the AGD Impact as well as the General Dentistry magazine. And we've got a great team there. The editor, Dr. Kaczynski, and Kristen Gover, and a bunch of other folks do a really fantastic job with that. So Dr. Fesaha Gebrehiwot is a practicing dentist in the Dallas area, and he built that practice from the ground up with commitment to clinical excellence and compassionate care. And we're going to find more about your training in a little while here. He's a dedicated lifelong learner and has completed extensive continuing education and is a 2026 AGD Fellowship candidate. So congratulations in advance for that. Looking forward to seeing you in Las Vegas, which we'll all talk a little bit about later as well. Dr. Gebrehiwot is passionate about serving patients with empathy and inspiring immigrants and first-generation professionals to believe in the power of their stories. His life reflects the belief that when determination meets opportunity, extraordinary things are possible. And you have a much more extensive biography than that, but we're going to talk about it, so I'm not going to read it. So I'd rather just talk about that. And you really do have a unique story. So tell me how this all began. Start right from the beginning for me.
Well, I grew up in a small country called Eritrea. It's in East Africa. Most people don't really know much about it. So I grew up in, even then, I grew up in a rural village where schooling was just not an option. I'm one of 8 kids, and we just lived in a farming environment, farming community, where we just rely on a rainy season. And so that's kind of how we grew up, being my father and my grandparents, and, it was there for generations. And in the 80s, the weather change is real, climate change has become real. And so most people will remember it as the, East African drought. Most people will know the famine in Ethiopia. Obviously Eritrea is small, you don't really know about it, but that whole area was affected by this whole famine that happened in the 80s. And so then my father said, we've gone through this, and my kid does not have to rely on a rainy season to have a life or death situation. So he's, when I was young, I was the 5th from my siblings, and it was me and my brother. So my father said, you guys gonna go to school. Unfortunately for the older siblings, they were already helping with farming and stuff. So he picked the younger ones, and so it was me and my brother. The problem was that we didn't have a school around. So the schooling we had to go was 7 kilometers, and so 14 kilometers every single day. And we were, I was 6 years old at the time. And so that's kind of what we did. We wake up first thing in the morning, we had farming chores. Either we go grab water from the well that's 2-3 miles away, So we go to the farm, go get some dry wood for fire, So that was the lifestyle. We didn't know any better, but that's the lifestyle that our parents had. And so we did that, So day in, day out, the schooling was a one shift. So for example, it's either morning shift or the afternoon shift. If the schooling is the morning shift, then we would go in the morning shift, then we come right back from school, we go follow our parents, wherever they are. So the farms it's not a one farm, it's just they're spread wherever they are. So we just go follow them, help them out with whatever they need. And so yeah, that's kind of how we grew up. And school was whatever we learned in school. We didn't really had the resources to study, or we didn't have a study material. We didn't have a library. We didn't have none of that. We go to school. We whatever take we know notes we take in the classes. That's how it is. And so we did that. And then luckily for me, in high school, I get this opportunity to go to a vocational school. So after ninth grade, 9, 11, 9, 10, 11th grade, it's a vocational school in the city. And so I took that opportunity. But even though it's a vocational school, but you still have to support yourself. So whatever your parents help you, that's how it is. So it was just a little block, we call it. It's a wooden block, and then it was just a bunch of us, kind of stuck together. But that kind of opened up my eyes as far as what schooling really can do. And so we studied a little bit, and then I graduated from high school. And then after all that, I got a visa letter. I won a visa letter to come to the United States.
Wow. Let me just interrupt you because I mean, I have such great admiration for you because if you think about that, what you had to endure as a small child, walking miles in each direction and, having to make your own way and then come back before or after and do hard farming work and things like that. I mean, there's a lot of that stuff in American culture, but not in recent times do people, in my opinion, at least that I'm aware of, have that significant hardship. And it's a testament to your ability to persevere. And even at a young age, I guess you had that instilled in you. So that's fantastic.
Yeah, well, to be honest, so the way, because I see my dad, who's my superhero, because I've seen him do the same thing. He would be farming, he would be, I mean, so and we just follow. He was my role model, and that's the way it is, and that's what we kind of did. But I know what you mean. I have older patients here in my practice. I tell them they read some of it, and we kind of pick this conversation about farming life. The older ones here in Texas, there are some that own farming, or their parents were farmers, and they'll tell me, "Oh, we used to do this too." So there's a similarity, but you're right. It's a much older generation than this current
Yeah.
generation, I would say.
Yeah. Yeah. So you won the lottery, and then you were able to come to the United States from the visa lottery.
Yeah.
And tell me about that, because obviously I'm guessing you didn't speak a lot of English when you got here.
No. Well, lucky for me, I won a lottery. And so the lottery it's a process. Most people think, it's a lottery you won and you just grab yourself and you pick yourself up and you come here. It's not like that. It's a whole year process. There's so many pieces they need to align to get here. And so the first thing is, just like your college application, they send you a secondary application. So you have to go through all that, and then you have to have a sponsor. So you got to come here and somebody has to sponsor you. And I didn't really have a sponsor. I didn't have the money to come here. And so lucky for me, it was the summer and there was my cousin's a friend. He was visiting from the US. It happens to be that year, that time, and I had the paperwork and I needed a sponsor. And so I'm just looking for a sponsor and I asked him and luckily he said, if you come to the United States, what would you do? That was the question he asked me. I said, well, I really wanted to school. I wanted to go further my education because that's really what my father's, for me, it was my father's mission was for me to educate myself so that I don't rely on the rainy season. So when I told him that, I was like, okay, then I'll sponsor you because if you tell me for your reasoning to come to the US was something else, maybe I wouldn't sponsor you. But because you like schooling, and he happened to like schooling, and that was the win. And so he said, I'll come when I get back to the US, I'll send you the documentation you need. And he did that. So that whole process takes a year to just get here. You have to interview, you have to, it's a whole another story. But I had to go from Eritrea to Ethiopia, the capital city, because that was where my interview was at the US Embassy. And that took a 3-day bus ride on a bumpy road. Anyway, so that's a whole another story. But yeah, so I ended up here in the States. And to be fair, when I got here, I was excited in a way, but I also scared in a different way because
Sure.
I mean, I was 20 years old. I spoke almost zero English. So, and then I didn't really know people. I had zero expectation of what the US is like from a cultural standpoint, from a food standpoint, I had zero expectations. So I got here. My sponsor was in Chicago at the time. And so I landed in Chicago. He came pick me up at the O'Hare airport and, he drove me home. And I was just scared in a way that I had no idea what's to come.
And
Uh,
probably cold as well.
Well, luckily it was August, so it wasn't cold. Season-wise, it was August, so it wasn't very cold. And he's excited, and he wanted me to be excited, but I really didn't have the excitement at all. So I remember, and so he would ask me, he's like, "Why are you not excited? Like, look at the roads." And he's trying to get me all hyped up about all these buildings in Chicago, but inside I was just kind of scared on how things will go. And that's kind of how
Yeah.
I remember all I wanted to do was I wanted to get started on my own. I didn't really want to be there, a burden to them, my sponsor. All those things were going through my head. And so I was like, I don't want to be a burden. As soon as I'm able to work, as soon as I'm able to get my paperwork, then I want to get working. And so that was the first conversation I had with my sponsor. And he's just like, no, just relax, don't worry, just get a sleep, after 24 hours of flight and just sleep, rest, then you deal with that later. And so I said, okay. So I rested for a few days and then I told his wife actually, just take me I need to get a job. I need to get started. And so, yeah, so I mean, the first job she took me was McDonald's. Obviously, I couldn't speak English, so they didn't hire me. And then I remember the other store that I went to was Joel Osco or Osco. There's some store like that in Chicago that I remember.
I'm
Um,
not sure. Yeah. Yeah.
I went there and they hired me also. So a week passed by, 2 weeks passed by, 3 weeks passed by. By the fourth week, I'm almost a little bit anxious. I just want to get started. Obviously I have family back home that I wanted to help too, and all that kind of stuff was going through in my mind. But yeah, that's kind of how it started.
Wow. How'd you finally get involved in your education? How'd you pick that up? Obviously, I can only imagine how scared you must have been in the giant city of Chicago, ever coming from, a more rural area there and seeing all of that. And I can only envision that whole picture and how that was going on. But how did you transition into an education from there?
Well, so education was totally the priority for me. I knew that for sure. But I also knew I had a short-term challenges I need to face, which means that I need to work, I need to, learn the language, I need to get the culture a little better. But primarily, I need to work, I need to save a little bit of money. That was kind of my primary focus. I knew that I kind of gave myself, a year or two. But just to before I get to that, and so I told you I was in Chicago, couldn't really get a job. Along the process, I had a friend of mine that I met through the process when he won a lottery too. So this is back home. He won a lottery. So because I told you that it takes about a year to get the whole process.
Yeah.
And so we met and we became friends, and we just kind of followed each other and say, okay, where are you gonna go? He happens to end up in San Jose. We had exchanged phone numbers by that time. And he arrived in the States about a month ahead of me, before me. So, when I said, you know what, let me just check on my friend. So I called him up and he said, well, I'm in Phoenix. He goes, I start working at the Phoenix Sky Harbor Airport. So I'm sure they will hire you. Just come over. That's so he gave me this open invitation and he said, if you come here, maybe we'll be roommates. And so that's kind of how I left Chicago after a month, got to Phoenix, got to the airport. Literally, I landed at 10 a.m. He picked me up and I said, take me to get a job. That's really what I wanted to do. And so the same afternoon, we went to the airport and got a job at the airport at the Sky Chefs. I don't know if you remember Sky Chefs, where they do
Sure, sure. Yeah.
food stuff. And that was kind of my first job. That's how I started. And so I got to the Sky Chefs, had a job. Luckily, back then, this was 1997. The job market was very healthy, which means you can do a lot of overtime. You can work as much as you like. And so I worked 12-hour shifts, holidays, you name it. I mean, that was almost heaven because that's all I wanted to do was like work as much as I can so I can save a lot of money. And yeah. And then, by the way, I forgot. So while I'm working, I start taking English for second language speakers, ESL at the community college. And so that was kind of my entry into education. Yeah.
Wow, that's fantastic. So we're going to pick up your story in a minute. We have to take a break for our sponsor here. We'll be right back. This AGD podcast series is sponsored by DHP, one of the largest family-owned full-service dental dealers in the United States. DHP provides dental and medical supplies, equipment repair and maintenance, technology, and equipment sales. AGD members receive exclusive discounts and promotional offers when you buy from DHP. We are especially grateful for DHP's continued support of AGD. Their partnership helps make this podcast and these vital conversations possible. Discover why like-minded general dentists work with DHP by visiting their website at dhpsupply.com. Welcome back, everyone. We're talking with Dr. Fesaha Gebrehiwot, and we were talking a little bit about his journey. And let's pick up where we left off. And we're at Phoenix Sky Harbor Airport, I believe it is.
Yeah. So that was kind of my first job. And then, after that, I picked up jobs that paid, 50 cents more, So at the Sky Harbor, it was $5.25. That was the pay. And then I found other manufacturing places, and it's more like a manufacturing place in South Phoenix. It paid 50 cents more. And so I left that job, took another job, and they paid also unlimited overtime, Saturdays, Sundays, you name it. I mean, that was the holiday for me. It was just my main goal was just make as much money as I can so that I can quit the job so I can focus on my schooling. So I made that very, very clear. It was not even a question. And so we had 4 roommates in a 2-bedroom, little apartment. We tried to save money. I said my friend and a couple of other friends. So we tried to save every penny possible. That was the mindset we had. And so at the same time, I'm still picking up the ESL for second language speakers. And that's, I took, there's levels of it, which class you can take. So the first a year and a half was primarily focused on just working and save as much money as possible. You can only imagine making $5.25 how much money you can save, but it is enough at the time. It was enough. And so yeah, so once I have enough saving that I thought that was enough for me to drop the work, then I went full time on schooling and then part time in the work environment. In other words, I would work just over the weekend,
Sure.
just focus the schooling. And then, I started at Phoenix Community College, took English and math and all that. So I did the community college for a couple of years. and then transferred to Arizona State University, which happens to be, you can kind of see that that's a ASU right there.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. So, went to ASU. I did, at the time, obviously now, I'm a lot more talkative and more comfortable speaking and all that. But at the time, back then, I was timid. I didn't really have a lot of communication skills. And so, the thought of college, what could I study? I really wanted to hide with my, communication skills. So I thought engineering was a really good hiding place. I just thought, I talked to the counselors and they say, well, English, I mean, if you're engineering, you probably don't need to talk to a lot of people. That was kind of the process of elimination with this other majors that I honestly would even consider studying.
You've got to be naturally smart because engineering is typically not an easy career path. For a lot of people struggle with that, with mathematics and engineering and things like that.
Yeah, well, I think that it just maybe because I didn't have to deal with the language stuff, and so the math and the physics actually came a little easier for me.
Mm.
And so, I kind of, I had some really good supportive instructors, and they kind of pushed me in that area. So, yeah, the math and the science, came okay. It was a little easier than, but the communication stuff. I mean, you give me write a term paper, it was that was a nightmare. And so, compare those two, I was like, I'd rather do the math stuff, which is coming a little easier on me, and so I can do that. And so that's how I ended up in engineering, to be honest. So if you really ask me what if I really fully understood what engineering would look like in the workforce, I really didn't have a full grasp of what that is.
Yeah. And now, how did that translate into dentistry? How did you jump from engineering into dentistry then?
Well, so I studied engineering and then I graduated. Lucky for me, I got a job with Motorola. And so, I was like super excited. Here I am, this kid from, East Africa to working for Motorola at the time. I mean, it was just, I was over the moon. I mean, really. And so got a job. Motorola has this program called the rotational engineering program where they kind of the first year they kind of give you different kinds of roles and then you kind of figure out what you want to do. So I did that program. And along the way you meet people and different departments. And so, I was getting a little more comfortable at this stage. My speaking got better and being around people in general got better. I think I got used to the culture stuff a little better the first few years, even food. I mean, if I tell you I didn't eat eggs for 2, 3 years because it didn't taste the same. I didn't drink milk because it didn't taste the same. My test buds were not used to the this food
Yeah.
that's what this country offers. So, the first 2, 3 years, I'm homesick, but also food didn't taste the same, so you're dealing with all this stuff. Again, I told you I'm one of nine, well, one of 8 kids, of course, not 9 kids, but 8 surviving. And so I grew up around siblings and cousins and this, and here I am in the place where I got nobody.
Yeah.
But you're
Yeah.
dealing with a lot of stuff at the same time. You're homesick and you can't find the food that you like to eat and all those things. So when I got to Motorola, I got a little more comfortable because my language got better. When I went through ASU, I had friends that we used to study together. The library, doing engineering. Engineering requires a lot of studying. I can tell you that right now. All this math stuff. We were in the library for 6, 7 hours solving equations and that kind of stuff. And so, along the way, I got a little more comfortable, and then, yeah, so once I got Motorola, the transition to dentistry, I'm sure that's what you're trying to get to, was that Motorola, once I got a check, I said, now all of a sudden I'm self-conscious about my smile, and I said, I gotta go. My coworkers will tell me that I went to my dentist. I've never been to a dentist by that time. And so they'll tell me, "Yeah, I went to my dentist." I was like, I need to go too. So finally I decided to go. And obviously I had all the things that we find now as a dentist, the calculus and all those stuff, the cavities and all that. And so, yeah, that was kind of an eye opener for me. That was how it started to dentistry. And so, literally it took me about a year and a half to two to really get my oral health in order. I had bleeding gums and all that was taken care of, but I did follow through with whatever they tell me. I had cavities taken care of and all that. All of a sudden I can see my smile just getting bigger and more comfortable with my teeth being healthy. And that was kind of the beginning of what led me to dentistry.
Wow, what a great story.
Um,
And then, of course, you went on, I guess, to Arizona State University. Is that where you went to dental school or?
No, I went to the University of Washington for dental school. And
Okay.
so just kind of give you a little more that link so that you understand. So once I got my oral health under control, then I got this, I remember my dad, just having a toothache and he just there's no help. We never had a dentist, we never had access to care, none of that. So I can connect with those, and man, I was like, what do I need to do? What does it take to be a dentist? That's really all I can ask at the time. And then I would rule it out. I would say, oh man, you have to have biologists, you have to have this. And I've never had biology in my life, so, and remember at this stage, I'm in my almost late 20s. And so, but the question of can I be a dentist just kept coming to me, and I said, well, let me just maybe take a biology class. I ended up taking a biology class while still at Motorola working and at a community college. And see, that was my first cell biology. I took cell biology, and then I kind of liked it. And then after that, I took another class, another class. I was like, all right, now I'm ready I can actually become a dentist. I think that's just a barrier for me. I'm not gonna let one biology class stop me from, doing what I want to do. So
Wow, that's a
yeah,
fantastic, that's a testament to your perseverance, right? And your dedication.
yeah, I mean, to be honest, it does take a lot of dedication. Yeah, I am aware. I always tell myself, I'm like, if I put my mind to it, I know I can do it. That's kind of the belief I have inside. And so once I say I make that decision that I'm gonna do it, I know I'm gonna do it. Yeah.
Yeah. And then after that, you went to dental school and then you got out. I know you took a lot of extra training. You've been to, I think, COIS and you've been to a lot of different postgraduate dental training centers, right?
Yeah. So, so I on this occasion, so yes, I did went to the University of Washington. I can tell you dental school was not easy for me. So dental school was extremely difficult, but I knew I could do it. I always believe in myself that I know I can do it. With all those exams, though, I had some anxiety, board one, board two, all of those. So, I'm done, I finished. And so I graduated. I thought that I'm done. I'm a dentist. I'm fully grown dentist. And then, I start working in a corporate setting initially. That's really the job I could find. And then I realized that's just I know there's later on I found out that that's a license to learn. All I got was a license to learn, because frankly, I would have patient would come in with this complex stuff. I was like, how do you even deal with that? All I know, I mean, I know I'm very good at learning how to do is, feeling here and there, but there's all this other stuff that comes with it. So I say, well, I'm not going to be a mediocre dentist. So I knew I made a decision I'll never be a mediocre dentist. So what I said that I'm going to find people in every area to help me to be my mentors. And so I started this path, and I want to say almost a journey to be excellence. In excellence, so I went to the Dawson Academy. I finished the Dawson Academy. I went to course Senator John Coyce, I mean, amazing. What I learned from John is incredible. Yeah, I graduated from the Coyce Center. Implants, I've done, Dr. Resnick. I've graduated from his program as well. So I love surgery. Actually, last week I was at the PICOS Implant Institute learning all this surgery stuff. So I made a commitment to be to be a lifelong learner, I'm still a learner. So last week I was in the whole week I was at the Picos Institute. Yeah.
Yeah, they have a great institute. I've been there as well. They have a great institute. And I know you trained with my classmate and a good friend of mine, John Nasty. I
Oh,
think you did some.
I'm sorry. I forgot John. John.
Yeah.
Yes, I also went through John's program. Fantastic. John is a friend and a mentor, actually. I can text him right now, so he will respond. I'm sorry. Yeah, but no, I'm all in. I'm all into dentistry. I love I love dentistry. I do really, really love dentistry in all aspects. I do all kinds of clinical dentistry. I do endo. I do, I do surgery. I do implants. I do all of it. Yeah.
So let me ask you. So I got to ask you, a great story. I mean, really compelling, interesting, all the adjectives story, fantastic. Give some advice to our viewers about, persevering through tough times and things that have gotten you through that. So give us some advice.
Well, to be fair, I think for dentists, again, this is very specific. When you know, don't expect to be good if you're not learning the stuff. The things that used to scare me, eventually it just becomes easy. Here, let me just give you a little story. I would take extraction, I would take teeth out, and then I would put a little powder and it's a bone grafting, and then the patient would come back, and that bone graft just is gone. They would come back. I was like, this something is not right in here. So you do a bone grafting, and what you think is right may not be necessarily right. Then you start hanging out with the people that know how to do it. Then they show you little things here, little things there. It's life changing. One, your confidence just go through the roof because and the patients, they're in the chair and you're talking to them, and you're comprehensive dentist, which means that you're seeing a whole lot more stuff. You're not seeing just, oh, you have a cavity here and there. And it's not that. The conversation becomes very interesting with the patients, and the patients, they'll tell you, like, I've never had anybody talk to me this way before. So I want to say that, for anyone, and again, I'm a mentor to some, I love talking to people. I love talking to dentists, and I ask them, it's like, what Cs have you taken? None. Some people have taken nothing.
Yeah.
And so how do you get better? How do you get better if you're not advancing and you're not learning the stuff that's out there? There's like Mike Picos. I was with him last week. I mean, he's mastered the implant stuff, right? So why would you not take advantage of all the stuff you knew the last 30 years? you know
Yeah.
John Coyce, I mean, like, look, you go to John will teach you from how do you approach every case the same, even if it's a denture, whether it's a denture case, whether it's a cosmetic case, whether it's that case. You learn a recipe to go and say, okay, this is what I wanted to see. So before it was like, all right, I don't know how, you avoid all that, right? So I have a patient coming in, and you'll learn this stuff. So all I wanted to say to anyone who is in dentistry, obviously, is that you got to find the mentors, So I call them, so again, I can call Dr. Resnick right now. He would respond to he would help me. If I have an implant case I'm not quite sure about, and I'll just text him and say, hey, Dr. Resnick, I've got this case. What can I do? And again, I've gone through his program. He knows what I'm able to do. He knows what I'm not able to do. I love that man, just so it's just that for me, you can't, get to those until you actually put the work. So for me, I kind of set a standard for my own self, and then for my patients, of course. One, I don't want to cheat my patients. Actually, can I tell a little story? Before I attended the Dawson, I had a patient walk in here, and he goes, he's had two crowns in the front. They look little chiclets on the front, and he's got a lot of stuff going on. He walked in. I honestly didn't know what to do, how I would treat that patient. So I took some records and pictures and whatnot, and I said, you know what? I really don't know how to treat you. So I said, I literally Googled a prosthodontist near me, and I said, you know what? This doctor might help you, but I can't help you. So I gave him a referral. he wanted his business. And then I said, I'll never do that ever again. I said, I'm going to learn whatever I need to learn so that when I have patients coming in with complex cases, I want to be able to help these patients because they come to me to see me. And so anyway, so he walked out. So I thought he went to that prosthodontist, got the treatment done. That same, I think it was the following month, I started the Dawson, obviously started the Dawson to start looking at comprehensive cases and blah, blah, blah. The patient returned in 2 years. He never went to that prosthodontist. He came back to me again and said, hey, I know what the work you do. I trust you. So I want you to fix me up. And guess what? The next time he came around, I said, oh, hell yeah, I can fix you now because I learned how to do that case. And so all to say is that, you have to equip yourself with the tools you need, because no patient, you don't know what patient is going to walk into your practice and what kind of work they will need. It's a complex case. Sometimes it's a mix of implant, endo, and this and that. There's a lot of stuff that can happen. So yeah. So my advice is, and again, I'm sorry if I gave you a longer version of it, but all to say is that, learn the stuff. If you're gonna do it, just learn it and enjoy it. It's fun, honestly. So surgery becomes a lot more fun, once you're comfortable with it. Because you start doing it and over, and you go see people that are experts in their field. They tell you things and how all that fear goes away.
Absolutely. I think your personality and your lifelong perseverance and dedication to education has served you well. And I think that's what AGD is about. That's what we're about. We're about, especially the Mastership, where it pushes you out of your comfort zone and makes you take different courses that can help you. And we're looking forward to AGD 2026 at Caesar's Palace in Las Vegas in June 24th to the 27th, where we're going to have a lot of great courses like that. And Dr. Resnick has spoken for us before. Dr. Nasti has spoken for us before. We've got a lot of world-class guys like that. Dr. Hornbrook will be out there. I'm sure you've heard of him. But listen, we're out of time. Really fascinating to chat with you. And maybe we'll have you back on again so we can keep up to speed with you. And I'm sure you'll be up to some great things in the future.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Dr. Schmidt. I appreciate you. And then I am actually looking forward to the AGD Fellowship. That's been my mission, to become a fellow, and then the next after that is going to be Mastership. So
Absolutely. And I'm looking forward to seeing you on the stage. So thank you again. Really appreciate it. And I'll also like to thank our producer, Kristen Gover. If you like what you heard, please like and subscribe to our channel. You can always find us on Spotify, SoundCloud, Apple Podcasts, and of course the AGD app and YouTube under @General Dentistry. If you have any questions, concerns, or comments, you can reach out to us at news@agd.org. Thanks again, and we'll see you next time.